How has a parent dressed their child that made you say, "You've got to be kidding me"? When I was planning my daughter's 8th birthday party, I made everything super clear on the invitation. Water balloon fights, paint wars, slip and slide, pool. Time! I even put it in bold letters. Dress kids in clothes that can get absolutely destroyed, or let me know if you need me to provide extras. I also mentioned I was a certified lifeguard, and that parents were totally welcome to stay and hang out. Most did. It was going to be 4 hours of pure summer chaos, and I wanted everyone prepared. About a week before the party, this mom, Brenda, called me. She was super snippy about it and said her twins wouldn't be coming because it sounded too messy for her kids. I was like, okay, cool, no problem. Cross them off my list. So imagine my shock when on party day, Brenda's car pulls up to my driveway. She hops out, opens the back door, and pushes out her 7-year-old twins before I can even walk over to say hi. Then she just speeds off without a single word. But here's the kicker. These kids looked like they were dressed for a royal wedding. The boy was wearing a full navy blue suit with a vest, dress shoes that probably cost more than my grocery budget, and his hair was slicked back with enough gel to survive a hurricane. The girl had on this white lace dress that went down to her ankles, sparkly shoes, and her hair was done up in some fancy bun with actual pearls woven through it. I'm standing there, holding a water balloon, staring at these 2 kids who look terrified and completely out of place, while 12 other children are already soaked and screaming with joy in my backyard. The boy looks at me and whispers, "Are we supposed to get dirty?" His sister just stared at her fancy shoes like she was afraid to move. I felt so bad for them. Thankfully, my neighbor Janet had brought extra clothes for her own kids and immediately offered to help. We took the twins inside and got them changed into some old t-shirts and shorts. The relief on their faces was instant. And then these kids went absolutely wild. They were the first ones in the pool, diving headfirst into paint balloons, sliding down the slip and slide on their bellies. They stuffed their faces with tacos and watermelon, getting juice all over their chins. The boy even started the biggest water balloon fight of the day. 4 hours later, they were completely exhausted barefoot because they'd lost the borrowed flip-flops somewhere in my yard and covered head to toe in blue paint, grass stains, and watermelon juice. They looked like actual kids for once. Then Brenda shows up. She takes one look at her children, and her face goes completely red. She starts yelling about how they're supposed to go straight to her cousin's wedding, how she spent $200 on those outfits, how I should have known better than to let them get so messy. I just stared at her. You never told me about any wedding. You said they weren't even coming to my party. You dropped them off without saying a word and left. She kept screaming about how obvious it should have been, how their fancy clothes were a clear sign, how I ruined everything. The other parents were all watching this unfold, and my poor daughter was crying because someone was yelling at her birthday party. Finally, I'd had enough. I looked Brenda dead in the eye and said, "Not my problem. You dumped your kids here dressed inappropriately. Didn't communicate your plans. And now you're mad about the consequences. Figure it out." She grabbed her paint-covered, exhausted twins and dragged them to her car. The kids were crying now, probably because they knew they were in trouble for having fun. As she drove away, I could only imagine the scene when those 2 showed up to a formal wedding looking like they'd been through a paint mixer. But honestly, best party those kids probably ever. When I was planning my daughter's 8th birthday party, I made everything super clear on the invitation. Water balloon fights, paint wars, slip and slide, pool time. I even put it in bold. Dress kids in clothes that can get absolutely destroyed, or let me know if you need extras. I mentioned I'm a certified lifeguard, and parents were totally welcome to stay. About a week before, Brenda, a mom, called sounding snippy. She said her twins wouldn't come because it sounded too messy for her kids. I thought, okay, cool, no problem. So imagine my shock when on party day, Brenda's car pulls up. She hops out, opens the back door, and pushes her 7-year-old twins out before I can say hi. Then she speeds off, no words. Here's the kicker. The kids looked like they were dressed for a royal wedding. The boy wore a full navy suit with a vest, dress shoes probably pricier than my grocery budget. His hair slicked back with enough gel to survive a hurricane. The girl wore a white lace dress down to her ankles, sparkly shoes, and her hair in a fancy bun with pearls woven in. I stood there holding a water balloon, staring at them looking terrified and completely out of place, while 12 other children were soaked and screaming with joy. The boy whispered, "Are we supposed to get dirty?" The girl just stared at her shoes, afraid to move. I felt so bad for them. Thankfully, my neighbor Janet had brought extra clothes for her kids and offered help. We took the twins inside and got them into old t-shirts and shorts. The relief on their faces was instant. Then they went wild. First in the pool, diving into paint balloons, sliding belly first on the slip and slide. They stuffed their faces with tacos and watermelon, juice all over their chins. The boy started the biggest water balloon fight of the day. 4 hours later, they were exhausted, barefoot. They'd lost the borrowed flip-flops and covered head to toe in paint, grass stains, and watermelon juice. They looked like actual kids for once. Then Brenda showed up. She took one look at her children and went red in the face. She started yelling about how they were supposed to go straight to her cousin's wedding. How she'd spent $200 on those outfits, and I should have known better than to let them get messy. I just stared. You never told me about any wedding. You said they weren't even coming. You dropped them off and left. She kept screaming about how obvious it should have been, that their fancy clothes were a clear sign, that I ruined everything. Other parents were watching. My poor daughter was crying. Finally, I looked Brenda in the eye and said, "Not my problem. You dumped your kids here dressed inappropriately. Didn't communicate your plans. Now you're mad about the consequences. Figure it out." She grabbed her paint-covered, exhausted twins and dragged them to the car. The kids were crying, probably because they knew they were in trouble for having fun. As she drove away, I imagined the scene when these two showed up at a formal wedding, looking like they'd gone through a paint mixer. But honestly, it was probably the best party those kids ever had. Story 2. My cousin stole $12,000 from our grandma and blamed me. My whole family believed him until I exposed everything in court. 3 years later, I never thought my own blood would stab me in the back over money, especially not when the money belonged to the one person who loved us both unconditionally. But I guess grief brings out the truth in people and my family. The truth was a whole lot uglier than I ever imagined. Before all this, we were what you'd call a tight-knit family. At least that's what we told people. Christmas at Aunt Linda's 4th of July barbecues, in Uncle Mike's backyard group vacations to Lake Geneva every summer. On the surface, it looked like we were one of those picture-perfect suburban clans you see in cheesy Hallmark movies. But if you looked closer, you'd see the cracks. You'd see the way Aunt Linda constantly pits her son Brandon and me against each other. "Look how well Brandon dresses. Maybe you should try that. Or Brandon got another scholarship. What are you doing with your life?" You'd see the way she dominated every family gathering like a queen with a plastic crown and a wine glass that never emptied. You'd notice how my mom and her younger sister always smiled too hard at Linda's insults, like she was trying to hold the family peace with gritted teeth and clenched fists. And then there was Grandma Ruth, our anchor, our protector. The only one who saw through all the pettiness and still managed to love everyone despite it. She was the kind of woman who made Sunday dinners feel sacred and knew how to make you feel important, even when the rest of the world treated you like background noise. She was my biggest supporter, especially after my dad walked out when I was 12. She'd show up to my school plays, help me buy secondhand suits for interviews, slip me cash when she knew Mom was too proud to ask for help. She never missed a birthday, never forget a milestone, and when she got sick, I was the one who took time off work to help take care of her. Brandon didn't even visit her in the hospital until the 3rd week of her chemo. "Too busy with internships," he said. But guess who got the biggest slice of the inheritance? I should back up a bit. Grandma passed in March of 2020. It wasn't sudden. We'd been bracing for it since late 2019, but that didn't make it hurt any less. Co had just started locking things down, and the funeral was a small graveside service with masks and awkward elbow bumps instead of hugs. I delivered the eulogy. I barely made it through without crying. Brandon showed up late wearing sunglasses and a Rolex. He gave me a bro hug, I didn't return, and acted like we were still kids sharing bunk beds at Grandma's lake house. But the second she was on the ground, something shifted. The whispers began. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Aunt Linda. "You need to return the money, Logan." At first, I thought she was joking. "What money?" She sighed in that condescending, disappointed way she'd perfected over the years. "Don't play dumb. We know you accessed Grandma's estate account. The trustee said $12,000 is missing, and the bank records point to you." I swear to God, I laughed out loud, because it was that absurd. "Are you serious right now?" "I don't think it's funny," she snapped. "This is felony theft, Logan. Your grandmother's legacy. You should be ashamed of yourself." I was stunned, frozen. My brain couldn't even compute what she was saying. It felt like I was watching a horror movie from the inside of someone else's body. "I didn't touch her money," I said slowly, like I was explaining it to a child. "Then how?" "Do you explain the wire transfer?" "What wire transfer?" Linda hung up without answering. An hour later, my phone exploded with texts from cousins, aunts, even my own mother. "Why would you do this to Grandma? You need to return the money before we—" "Press charges. Don't bother showing up for Thanksgiving." I tried to call. Nobody picked up. I went to Mom's apartment. She wouldn't even open the door. "I can't believe you do this to your own family," she said through the peephole. "Just go." Just like that, I became the family pariah. I kept waiting for someone to ask me what really happened, to give me the benefit of the doubt, to say, "This doesn't sound like Logan. He took care of Grandma. He was there." But no one did. Brandon, meanwhile, went radio silent. Didn't call, didn't text, didn't even pretend to check in. And somehow, no one found that suspicious. So, I did what any sane, falsely accused person would do. I requested the financial records from the estate lawyer, logged every transaction, and started tracing the digital footprint of that $12,000. What I found made my blood go cold. What I found made my blood run cold. The estate lawyer had mailed me a packet of the final disbursement records and a copy of the wire transfer logs. I don't think he expected me to actually comb through it line by line, but I did. I was desperate. There it was, a transfer for $12,000 sent 4 days after Grandma died. Authorized by a digital signature that wasn't mine from a local IP address that when I ran it through a friend's tech tools map to an apartment complex in Evanston. Not my address, but Brandon's. I stared at the screen for what felt like an hour. Then I went back through my messages, digging up the one awkward selfie he'd sent the family from his new place in Evanston that he was so proud of. I compared the date of that post to the date of the transfer. It was 2 days after he moved in. He'd stolen the money after settling in and used Grandma's name and estate login to authorize it. Now, here's the kicker. Brandon had a degree in finance. He'd done an internship at a private wealth firm in the city. He knew exactly how estate distributions worked. He knew how to make it look clean. He thought no one would notice. And when someone did, he blamed me. At first, I wanted to storm over to his condo and throw the evidence in his smug face. I wanted to punch that phony Rolex right off his wrist. I wanted to scream at Aunt Linda. Make her eat every smug word she'd spit. Lat me over the phone. But I didn't, because I realized something important. They wanted a monster. Brandon gave them one. They never stopped to ask if it was real. So fine. Let them believe I'm the villain for a while. Let them choke on it. Instead of blowing up, I did something else. I went quiet, silent. I didn't respond to texts. Didn't defend myself. I moved into a cheaper apartment, worked 2 jobs, retail during the day, and rideshare at night. I even skipped Thanksgiving and Christmas that year. No awkward dinners, No glares across the table. No Aunt Linda whispering fake concern. But every spare hour I had, I documented. I made spreadsheets, printed copies of IP logs, highlighted account authorizations, downloaded public LinkedIn posts, grabbed screenshots of Brandon's social media, bragging about his luxury condo, and work-from-home startup consulting firm, because you know what they say, receipts talk. And I wasn't just planning to clear my name, I was going to burn him down. It took almost 8 months to collect everything I needed. I consulted with a legal aid clinic downtown and found a young lawyer who had just passed the bar and was hungry for a case. When I showed him the files, he blinked at me like I'd just handed him the script for a Netflix thriller. Logan, this is theft. Straight up fraud. You can absolutely go to court with this. But can I win? He looked at me dead serious. You can do more than win. You can bury him. I filed suit in civil court, fraudulent misrepresentation and financial damages. I didn't tell anyone. Not Mom. Not my siblings. Definitely not Aunt Linda. The subpoena hit Brandon's condo like a missile on a Thursday morning in early June. Aunt Linda called me 3 hours later, breathless. What the hell are you doing? I was at work at the time. I calmly stepped into the break room and said, filing a lawsuit. What does it look like? You're tearing this family apart. Number Brandon did that. I'm just holding the flashlight. She hung up. Typical. Brandon hired a lawyer, of course. A flashy one, expensive suit, big promises. They tried to play it like the whole thing was a misunderstanding that maybe Grandma had intended to give him the money, or that she mentioned it verbally. But I had the paper trail, the forged digital signature, the IP logs, the timestamps, the smug Instagram post of him buying a flat-screen TV the day after the money hit his account. It took less than 4 court sessions for the truth to unravel. And watching Brandon squirm on the stand, I won't lie, it felt good. He looked like a scared kid. Gone was the confident, arrogant golden boy. In his place was a man backed into a corner with no more lies to hide behind. The judge ruled in my favor. Brandon was ordered to repay the $12,000 plus interest and legal fees. The court called it intentional fraud with malice, which meant it would stay on his record for life. But that wasn't the end. Because when word got out, when family members started talking, it didn't take long for the full picture to come into focus. Brandon had borrowed money from at least 3 other relatives over the years. Money that mysteriously never showed up. The whispers became louder. Aunt Linda's reputation took a nosedive. She tried to hold a family meeting to spin the narrative. No one came. Mom finally reached out. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice cracking. "I should have believed you." I didn't say anything because apologies don't unburn bridges, especially not the ones you lit yourself. The thing about people like Aunt Linda is they never believe consequences apply to them. Even after the court ruling, even after Brandon was publicly embarrassed and ordered to pay restitution, even after my name was legally cleared and the judge outright stated I had never accessed Grandma's accounts, Linda still acted like I was the problem. We shouldn't have aired family business in court. She told my mom, "Logan should have come to us directly, come to you after you iced me out, called me a thief, turned the whole family against me." Right. But she didn't want reconciliation. She wanted control. And now that her golden boy's halo had shattered, she needed someone else to blame, someone else to manipulate. Problem was, I wasn't the same person I'd been 3 years ago. I'd spent those years working double shifts, scraping, by rebuilding my self-worth from the ground up. I'd sat alone on birthdays, eaten microwave dinners on Christmas Eve, and watched life go on without me, while everyone believed I'd stolen from a dying woman. You don't live through that and come back soft. So, when Mom passed along Linda's suggestion that we all move past it for the sake of family, I gave a short, simple reply. No. She called me that evening. "Logan, sweetie, I just think, don't." "Sweetie me?" Long silence. "Then your grandmother would have wanted peace." That part made me laugh, because if Grandma were alive, she'd have smacked Linda with her oxygen tank and handed me a slice of pie while doing it. She also would have wanted people to stop stealing her money. I said flatly, "What do you want, Linda?" And that's when it happened. Her voice cracked. She told me Brandon hadn't paid a dime yet, that he'd lost his job shortly after the ruling, that his reputation in the Chicago finance world was damaged beyond repair. Apparently, no one wants to hire a guy with a public fraud judgment. Who would have guessed? Worse, she'd co-signed his lease and his car and his private student loans. In short, she was screwed, and she wanted me to forgive the debt. Make a statement saying it was all a misunderstanding. Let Brandon off the hook so he could rebuild. I nearly dropped the phone from laughing. You want me the guy you disowned, slandered, and framed to fix the mess your son made after he destroyed my life? You're not being fair, she snapped. No, Linda, I'm being precise. There's a difference. She started sobbing. For real this time. Or maybe just louder. I don't know. I didn't care. All I could think about was the night I sat alone in a basement apartment, eating instant noodles while the rest of them passed around turkey and wine and talked about how disappointed they were in me. Let her cry. She hung up after saying, "You'll regret this." But the only thing I regretted was not cutting them off sooner. Over the next few months, it all collapsed. Brandon defaulted on the repayment plan. His wages were garnished. He had to break his lease and move back in with Linda, whose retirement savings had been drained trying to fix it. She sold her house. I started working part-time at a dentist's office. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I'd gotten promoted at work, finally had health insurance again, and had just started dating someone I actually saw a future with. She didn't know all the details yet, but she knew enough, and more importantly, she believed me. I even reconnected with my younger sister, Maya, the only one who'd reached out after the court ruling, and said, "I always had a feeling it wasn't true." We went for coffee. We talked for hours, laughed like we used to before all the drama. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. One night, I came home from work to find a handwritten letter on my doorstep. It was from Brandon. No envelope, just folded notebook paper and messy handwriting I hadn't seen since we were kids. I know you'll never believe me, but I'm sorry. I panicked. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I needed the money. And when Aunt Linda found out, she said, "You'd be the easiest person to pin it on. I never thought it would blow up like this. I'm so sorry." I read it 3 times. Then I lit it on fire in the kitchen sink and watched the ash swirl down the drain. Because sometimes closure isn't about forgiveness. It's about knowing the truth and choosing to move on anyway. I thought I was done with them. After everything after the lawsuit, the public embarrassment, Brandon's apology written in Sharpie on crumpled notebook paper, I truly believed that chapter of my life was closed. Then Aunt Linda got cancer. Stage 3, aggressive ovarian. That's what Maya told me. She'd been checking in on Linda occasionally, despite everything, because that's who Maya is. Too good for her own damn good. She said Linda wasn't doing well, that the treatments were brutal. Brandon was trying to take care of her, but mostly just hiding in the basement gaming and avoiding bills. "She's not the same," Maya said quietly over coffee one day. "She talks about Grandma a lot. Says she regrets how everything went down." I didn't respond. I just stirred my Americano and watched the cream swirl. A week later, Maya texted again. "Linda's asking if you'll visit, just once. She wants to talk." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I put my phone down, turned off notifications, and didn't reply because the truth is, I didn't know what I owed her anymore. Closure, forgiveness, a final face-to-face, or nothing at all. 3 months passed. Then she died. It was a quiet funeral. Closed casket. Brandon gave the eulogy. I didn't go. Maya did, and she told me it was awkward. Half the family didn't show up. The other half acted like ghosts. Brandon apparently cried, but not many people bought it. A week after the funeral, I got a call from Linda's lawyer. She'd left me something in her will. I almost didn't go, but curiosity has a cruel way of dragging you into rooms you swore you'd never step foot in again. I met the lawyer at a tiny office downtown. He was a soft-spoken man in his 60s with tired eyes and nicotine-stained fingers. He handed me a sealed envelope and said she wrote it herself. We didn't open it. I took it home, sat with it for an hour before opening it. The letter was short, handwritten like Brandon's had been, but far neater. Logan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I won't ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it, but I want you to know that I finally saw it. All of it. What I let happen, what I encouraged. You were never the villain. You were the scapegoat I needed, because admitting my own son was capable of something so cruel. It broke me. I hope you build a life that is so bright, so full, that no one can ever make you feel small again. Grandma was proud of you. She told me that once when you weren't around. I didn't want to believe her, but she was right. I left you something. It's not much, just something of hers. Something I should have given you a long time ago. I'm sorry. Linda folded inside was Grandma's locket, the gold one she wore every Sunday, engraved with the initials of all her grandchildren. When I opened it, I saw a tiny photo of me as a boy. On one side, and on the other one of Grandma and me together. I didn't even know that picture existed. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't cry. I just sat there. Let the weight of everything settle into the silence. That night, I visited Grandma's grave for the first time in years. It was a cold March evening, windy, gray. I brought the locket and a single yellow daffodil, and her favorite. I stood there and finally said everything I never got to say when they threw me out and smeared my name. All the times I needed her voice, and it wasn't there. All the nights I'd cursed the silence and wished just once someone had believed me. I made it, Grandma, I said softly. Not because of them, in spite of them. I placed the locket on the headstone, just for a minute. Then I tucked it into my coat pocket and walked away. That was a year ago. Today I own my own financial consulting firm. I built it from scratch with a couple of friends who believed in me, when no one else did. We work with nonprofits and small businesses, people who've been screwed over by the big guys. Brandon. Last I heard, he moved out of state, took a customer service job in Florida, filed for bankruptcy 6 months after Linda died, still has a fraud judgment on his record, still blames unfair family drama. I don't care. I have peace now. I don't need revenge. I don't need apologies. I don't even need anyone to say they were wrong. I have my name back. I have my dignity. And I finally understand. Family isn't blood. It's not who shares your last name. It's who shows up when your world burns and says, I'll sit in the ashes with you. So to anyone out there who's ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you the most, you are not alone and you will rise, even if you have to do it from the ground up.